Man,
Hello.
hey,
We're
my
live.
internet wasn't working. I was trying to join by my hotspot on my phone.
Oh goodness. Well, we're live now. I just put us up both up there. So hello.
Awesome. Awesome. What's up, party people?
Hello. We did it. We launched a podcast.
We did. We're so
Now
excited
here we
about
are.
the lineup of people that we have coming. It's going to blow you all away. How about I'll kick off with like a little bit of our why for the podcast, and then you jump in, and then we can talk about some kind of coming guests.
Yes, that sounds perfect.
Awesome. Yeah, so we're really excited about people who have been either neglected by the church or harmed by the church, and that's one of the reasons I know for me personally why the Fresh Expressions movement is so important. That there are just thousands of people. Hey, Kimmy, good to see you. All over the world that are just never going to come to our churches, no matter how good we do it, no matter how amazing our attractional only gatherings are. There are people that God loves that are just never going to really resonate with that. And so we have to find ways to be the church with new people and new ways. And my hope is that the podcast is going to be a resource to really help people do that work and think through that work. Hey, Kelly.
Hey, Kelly. Yes. I think that's great. And I love that we are working to have not just, big wigs. Like we've got Bishop Carter. He was our first guest. And so we have folks like him and people who were foundational kind of on the bigger institutional level of the Fresh Expressions movement. But we also have people lined up that are actually the boots on the ground folks, the adventurers, as we call them, that are creating these really cool new communities that expand the definition of what church is and what it could be, and allowing people to be drawn in to be a part of communities where they are allowed to be their most authentic selves and explore spirituality on their terms. And it's in spaces where they're comfortable, because not the typical church is not always comfortable for everybody. But that doesn't mean that they should be excluded from being given the space and the opportunity to have spiritual communities and spiritual homes.
Amen. And maybe if you're just kind of jumping in this live stream and thinking, hey, Jenny, good to see you. If, what are Fresh Expressions anyway? It's a movement of the Holy Spirit that started primarily in the Church of England, where the kind of the post-Christendom realities, like just the big ideas that people are going to go to church because it's what you do, and all those things have really shifted there. And so one of our upcoming guests, Bishop Graham Cray, was really instrumental in getting together a group, and they produced a resource called the Mission Shaped Church Report. And in that report, they just kind of named the different kind of shifts in culture and how people just weren't connecting with the inherited church in a large way. And so they advocated for fresh expressions of church, which comes from the Anglican Declaration of Assent to proclaim the gospel afresh in every generation. And so that's where that language comes from, about fresh expressions of church. So it's forms of church for people that are currently not part of any church or not connected with a church. And then that movement that kind of started in the United Kingdom took on a life of its own, and it's spread all over that continent and many other continents, and it's jumped over to the United States and kind of really taken on a life of its own here. And Fresh Expressions so our podcast is a partnership with Fresh Expressions Florida, where we've been at this work now for about a decade, trying to live into this vision of 500 fresh expressions of church by 2025 and 500 vital congregations. And now we have a movement called Fresh Expressions United Methodist, which is really a Wesleyan way to go about creating communities that are inclusive, accessible, transformative, and connectional. So how do we really kind of own our core DNA as Wesleyans and bring that to this task of forming church with new people in new ways?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Good stuff. I am very excited about being able to interview people like Graham Cray to kind of hear, because I don't know, my personality and the way that I do things, I like to start at the beginning, so if I'm going to start a TV show or a book series or something like that, I have to find the very, very first version of it so I can understand it and get the whole picture. And so being able to talk to people like Graham Cray and like Mike Moyna is going to be really special. And I hope that we can ask them really good questions and that the conversations will be valuable. I know they will be, at least for me. So I'm excited for that. We should talk a little bit today. We're actually interviewing somebody named Ray Jackson, and you know more about him. Do you want to kind of do a little teaser about him and why you wanted to invite him onto the podcast?
Yeah, for sure. So mixed in with like thought leaders and scholars and like literally the people who were in the very beginning, kind of kicking off the movement, practitioners who are doing ministry and creating Christian community in new and exciting ways. We want to have a lot of those folks, as Piper said. So Ray is based out of Washington, D.C. I want to encourage you to go up on iTunes and find him. It's Rai Jackson, and he's got some music on there. It's available wherever you can download music, and check him out. So not only is he a musician with R&B and rap, and I really encourage you to check him out on all different kind of platforms. iTunes is where I kind of live my life, but he's also a pastor of a local church. He's done really, really creative, contextual church planting in ministry kind of his whole life, and also really incorporates art and music and into the creating community kind of process. So I'm really excited. We're actually interviewing Ray later today, and then lots of people like him that are going to be featured on a podcast. We got a question coming in here from Jessica. Will the podcast be on all major podcast platforms? Uh-oh, you're muted, Piper.
There we go. Yes, we're using Podbean, which will have, it's got a lot of different, it puts it out onto everything. So right now, I think we're waiting on the Google Podcast app, but it's on everything else. So it's on Apple Podcasts, on the Podbean app, Spotify, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, Samsung, Podchaser. So it should be everywhere. And we are also going to be posting on YouTube. So we made a video version. So we're recording video and audio. So if you like to see people's faces when you watch podcasts, or I know for me at home, I really like to we use our TV for like lots of stuff. And so I use the YouTube app on my TV and we'll watch podcasts and listen to them that way. And so that's another good one. Here, I'll send some links so we can keep them. Oops. There's our theme music.
Awesome.
So I'll share them. That's the first episode. The first episode is out. Like I said, we interviewed Bishop Carter. So that's very exciting. He's gracious enough to sit down with us. And you can find, it's under the resources tab on our website. You can find the podcast. And so freshexpressionsfl.org/podcast to find the YouTube, as well as links to all the other ways you can listen. You can obviously also listen straight from your browser on the website as well. Yes.
So I'm also really excited about how we're going to be bringing in lay folks as interviews and teams of people. I think the really, really cool thing about Fresh Expressions is that it's really a movement of the whole people of God. And some of the most like vital leaders, Piper would be one of those people, are not clergy. Like they're doing this as their normal kind of space and rhythms of life. And so I'm really excited to bring in and hear how they're going about this in local context too. And I think what we're shooting for with the podcast is a good mix of those thought leaders, yes, bishops, yes, people who've been influential, scholars who've been writing about this stuff, clergy who are kind of doing some of this work and part of their normal way of going about being in ministry in the world. But then also most of this work is done by phenomenal, amazing, called by God and ordained in the waters of their baptism lay people. So we'll have a good mix of those coming in.
Yeah. Yes. I'm excited for that. You can get some ideas and some motivation and just be inspired by people's stories. It's going to be really good.
Yeah.
So our first episode is about or is with Bishop Carter. And so do you have any reflections on that? What did you think about that conversation?
Yeah, it was an amazing conversation, and Bishop Carter just has been so important in the lives of so many pioneer type people. Or we like to use the language of adventurer. So the pioneer language in the United States has real colonial expansionist kind of connotation. So we don't use that language here. It's the language we inherited from the United Kingdom. But we talk about adventurers, which has some theological depth, right? We're Advent people. We're living in between Jesus coming and his coming back and his coming today in our lives. So we're on that adventure of in that blazing trails of new creation, following in the slipstream of Jesus. But Bishop Carter really, to have an Episcopal leader as influential as he is, to make this like a conference initiative and to have the vision to see this, the need for this, really before lots of people in the United States. And I know we were the first conference to really make this a focus of our work. And that's because Bishop Carter. But what that did for people on the ground that are like doing this, and I can remember we were starting a church in a tattoo parlor in a burrito place when we heard about the Fresh Expressions Initiative in Florida. And we're like, oh, we don't have to hide this anymore. Or, oh, we're not crazy. We're not the only ones trying this. And actually, our bishop, has given us permission to try and even encouraging it and wanting to support it. So I can just say, as a practitioner myself, the impact that had, and then that changed really the nature of the congregations I was serving, that conversation with them too. So Bishop Carter shared a lot of wisdom in this podcast. Really gave his perspective on everything. You don't want to miss it. It's an amazing conversation.
Yeah, makes you feel hopeful for the future of the church and grateful to be part of the United Methodists and everything that's going on there.
Yeah.
Especially with the Fresh Expressions that has just launched, which I think is really awesome to have a specifically Wesleyan approach, because it goes so well with our Wesleyan origins, and being able to kind of dig in deep with that while exploring this new way of doing church is really exciting to me. I'm enjoying it.
For sure.
There's Tracy. Hey,
Tracy Rose in the house. What's up?
Talk about a layperson powerhouse.
Yeah, right. And Tracy's part of our Adventurers Leadership Academy here in Florida. So, yep.
Yes, we're grateful. We got to interview her. We got to add some more people to the list. We've got a really amazing lineup already. So,
yeah.
Tracy will be a good one. So, a little like a question: what do you think? What do you envision for the future? Like, what do you think what do you think the podcast is gonna look like on episode 100?
Oh, man. Man, that's a really good question. I imagine by episode 100, that there will have been a significant shift from what we feel like today is on the edge of things. That'll kind of become the center, and
Mm,
new forms of church and lay-led communities and all the things that we're talking about in New People, New Ways. That's going to be normal.
mm,
And that'll just be part of the blended ecology of church, or the way that people think about church.
mhm,
That's my hope anyway, that we won't go backwards into just only institutional inherited forms of church, but this will just become something that um, I'm just thinking about, like, people over the course of the last 10 years who've come to faith in a tattoo parlor. And
mhm,
then the things that they've started, and how their maturity, spiritual maturity, is developed. And what's that going to look like, years down the road, where there's whole cohorts of people that's been their experience of church, right? It's not
mhm.
been, I went to a congregation and sat in a pew and heard a sermon, but I encountered Jesus in a park or wherever they come to faith. And then, how will that kind of change um, the culture and the way that we think about church?
Mhm.
Uh,
Yeah. That makes me think, I forget what conversation we were having, but with Martin Atkins, he's from the British Methodist Church, and he's actually serving here in Florida right now in one of our churches. But he's very big part of the Fresh Expressions movement there. And he mentioned that, I forget what the percentage was, but it was like a pretty good chunk of the new people that are entering into their ministry training and education that came from Fresh Expressions. Like you were saying, that their only experience with church is through these different Christian communities. And so then they have a little bit of a difficult time trying to understand and blend back in with these like traditional forms of church. But I love the fact that there are people that, and we see it here in Florida and everywhere, people that are being called to ministry through their experiences as a part of a Fresh Expression, and I think that's very cool.
yeah. And just a little note here, that Martin and Elaine Heath, who is going to be one of our upcoming guests on the podcast, they're part of a thing called the Theological Symposium over at Fresh Expressions UM, where we're getting two Wesley scholars, theologians. These are global representation here. They get together and kind of talk about early Methodism, primitive Methodism, some of the key core missional ideas there, and then
Mm-hmm.
how the Fresh Expressions movement kind of brings that back in the 21st century. So Martin and Elaine, that is the upcoming December conversation. You don't want to miss that over at Fresh Expressions UM. And then we're going to have Elaine and her co-author on a book called Trauma Informed um, Evangelism. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and Piper and I are getting to get a preview of that amazing resource and book that's going to be a game changer for
Mm-hmm.
the church. But so get ready for that. Elaine's coming, and she'll be one of our guests coming up soon too.
Mm-hmm. I'm excited for that.
Yeah,
I shared a link to the theological conversations.
awesome. Thank you.
I'd love to get all those people to, yeah, get more of them to come and be guests as well. That would be awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I hope the podcast can be like in between those conversations, and that it can be something, that a resource for people as we're
Mm-hmm.
kind of building those out.
Yeah, definitely. Would love that. Cool. Well, how are you celebrating the launch today? Partying? We
Me?
should got streamers and balloons.
Yeah. First, I was trying to get my internet to work. That's how this
Mm.
conversation started. But yeah, I'm gonna party tonight. I'm gonna like really celebrate and then share it on every platform that I have. That's what I'm gonna do.
Yes. Everyone, please share. That would be amazing. We've got the posts up on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. So you can find the link to that first episode and then maybe tell us what your favorite place to stream is to listen so we can know to make sure that we have those out there. But like I said, it's on all the big ones, I think.
Mm-hmm.
We should have had background music and stuff.
Yeah, we should dance party.
Yeah, you're good at those, doing a dance break.
We've done them online too through Zoom. It's always interesting.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Do any of our listeners have any questions for us about the podcast, or if y'all have something, just type it in the chat.
Yes. Let us know.
I actually can't tell if our Facebook is even working because it's got a little red mark over it, like it's not. But...
It looks okay on mine.
Okay.
It wasn't. At first it wasn't working, but I think I fixed it. One thing we could talk about is why we chose that name, and actually Heather Evans helped us choose that name, who was on our team and left just recently, and we miss her, but she's still very much part of the Fresh Expressions world. But well, here's good. We'll talk to Tracy first. What representation percentage clergy versus lay guests will you have on?
I haven't really
at least like, try maybe make a goal of it being like 50-50 or something. That would be really awesome.
Yeah.
Because I think, having different points of view is really helpful. What do you think?
Yeah, I think 50-50 is a good goal to shoot for. One of the things that Bishop Carter in his interview that I thought was really cool is he talked about reverse mentoring and how older folks who have been down the spiritual path for a while have the humility and the wisdom to learn from younger folks or from people maybe just starting in their faith journey. And he's embodied that, as a bishop. And I think that's actually a key part of Fresh Expressions is the ability to really listen and not come in with all the answers and not think you're kind of the experts. And I think one of the things that I don't like about podcasts, if I'm totally being honest, is like they get a big name person or whatever, and then that draws some energy and stuff. But I find some of the most meaningful times is like learning from somebody who's just doing some small experiment somewhere. Maybe their names aren't in lights or they're not really being acknowledged at all. And I hope that we can collect those kind of folks and let them share their wisdom with us and their stories and what they're doing. So I hope we can start a new trend in the podcast world with that. And that we get just as excited about episodes with, lay people doing this in out of their living room or whatever as we do, scholars or
yeah. How about topics? We're kind of been doing it as like interview, so it kind of depends on the person that we're bringing in. So like Ray today, he's big on the arts. And so that will be very cool to talk about art and music and theater and how that is a part of spirituality. And so I think themes will just kind of come together naturally depending on who we're talking to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the overall, theme of new people, new ways. So
Mhm.
how are we forming relationships with new people, new ways, forming Christian community? So I think we'll weave that into every episode, hopefully. But
Mhm.
yeah, the topics kind of flow from the people and who they are and what they're doing, and yeah.
Yeah. Mhm. And that goes back to what I was talking about before with the name. So what's kind of our tagline with Fresh Expressions Florida is new people, new places, new ways. Um, all about, we're reaching out to, I like to say, like just the places that the traditional church can't reach. You're not going to get a person who has church hurt to come to your church. It's just like not going to happen. But people that have church hurt might be more open to have the similar kinds of conversations and explore spirituality and talk about their doubts and their beliefs and have discipleship in their favorite coffee shop or around their favorite hobby or in at their friend's house or those kinds of things. And so um, that's kind of what it's about. It's like new approaches to reaching new people in these new ways, which are actually really not that new. It's kind of simple. People have been doing this always. I think people always are building communities in different ways and trying and living more intentionally than our culture kind of wants and expects us to.
Mhm.
Weren't you talking about Susanna Wesley and how she had the first fresh expression?
Yeah, yeah.
I love
Um,
that.
it's interesting that we trace back, call John Wesley the father of Methodism, and I get it. Okay, he is, but actually, what if the true uh, originator of the Methodist movement is actually Susanna Wesley, who started the first fresh expression of church in her kitchen
Mm-hmm.
and had about 200 people coming to that. So it's a fairly large fresh expression of church. And her husband actually, Samuel Wesley, who was the kind of the pastor of that congregation at Epworth. He had a problem with it and said she should stop doing it. And she
Mm-hmm.
wrote back to him and said some very compelling lines about, if you want to answer to God for these souls, that then I'll stop. But if not, and so he was like, okay, just go for it. So
He's like,
um,
you have a point.
yeah, so the Methodist movement maybe started in a female adventurer's kitchen, the
Mm-hmm.
mother of Methodism. Maybe we have a mother of Methodism, and it's
Yeah.
baked right into it. And then if you think about how Wesley, John, and Charles, and the rest of them, there's 9 kids that survived, but
Mm-hmm.
they grew up in that environment, right? Like mom is starting a church in the kitchen,
Yeah.
but also just like really, really, she was big into like educating them in the scriptures and theology and all those things. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's a little not that known part of our history that's so important.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But just instilling, yeah, that adventure spirit of, she was breaking some social rules enough that her husband was concerned. But, she's breaking those rules in order to bring about something new and to minister to people that need it.
Yeah.
I'm trying to imagine a kitchen in the 1700s
Like,
with 200 people inside.
yeah. Yeah. And that comes from Richard um, Heinstreiter, the people called Methodists. Uh, uh, but also, it was also a kitchen that was big enough that a whole family of, you know, 9 kids could eat and at it as well.
That's
So,
true. That's
but
true.
yeah.
Pack them all in. Awesome. Tracy, I'm excited for a new fresh expression in Tallahassee. I will
Yeah.
be there. That sounds awesome.
Yeah. That place, Tallahassee, needs some fresh expressions.
Mm.
Yeah.
Hey, Tallahassee's a happening place. So yeah, so I'm glad to see some more fresh expressions popping up.
Yeah.
That's awesome. It's cool. Well, any other closing thoughts? Anything from folks listening? Anything you need to know or info you might want to know about our podcast? All those links.
That was not a diss on Tallahassee. That was just a Florida Gator making a comment about a place with.
About how good FSU is doing this year?
No, that was not the comment. That was not the comment. But
you're just bitter.
Yeah. Well, it's coming up a couple weeks, so
we'll see.
Get ready.
Awesome. Well, thanks for coming to our launch party, everybody. We're excited. Everything is already put up there and out there. So if you want to watch, Jill's taking it personally.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry. Mm-hmm. Sorry, the Seminoles are winning. Oh, here's one more.
Yeah.
You share some of the fresh expressions that are happening in Florida. This is a senior who wants to spread the good commission beyond the church walls, humbly and quietly.
Can I jump in and then you clean up the mess? Thank you for that question, Jenny. And the really cool thing is there's no age limit on this. So one of my lay people, his name is Larry, started a fresh expression in a dog park. He was 70 years old when he started this thing, and he had gone to church his whole life. And we started kind of experimenting with these things everywhere. And he said, yeah, Pastor, I'm not going to go to the tattoo parlor or the, place over there, but I'm going to, start this thing in the dog park. And he did that around his passion for, animals and hanging with his friends at the park. And so his Labradoodle dog, Rocky, he would bring Rocky and we bring our two little pugs, Vader and Ferdinand, and we would have church right out there in the dog park. Then my United Methodist Women, started a fresh expression. And honestly, I was a little bit skeptical about this, but their vision was they're going to rent the community center. And they have all these skills with arts and crafts and things that they've been doing for years. And so they wanted to get people and teach about sea glass jewelry and some other kind of arts and crafts. They called it Arts for Love. And they rented out the community center in Wildwood. And I was thinking, I was skeptical. And there was like 20 or 30 families showing up to this thing to learn about sea glass jewelry, arts, crafts, have a Jesus story. And we started a lot of fresh expressions in the Villages, Florida, which is a retirement community. So the really cool thing, we see really, really young people doing this, like starting stuff, and we see people chronologically mature doing this, chronologically gifted doing this. And it's really all about your passion, the people that you like to hang out with, turning that in the normal rhythms of your life, kind of turning that into a little faith community where you are. What do you think?
I definitely agree. I think people think when they hear new that means that you have to be young, you have to be new, but that's definitely not the case. I think that you see the heart, the adventuring heart and spirit in people of all ages, and it looks different because if I only, like, for example, I have Tallahassee Brew Theology here in Tallahassee, and that's not going to draw everybody in. People that aren't comfortable hanging out in a brewery it's not going to be a community for them. People that maybe have kids that they can't always get babysitters for, or have spouses that can watch, all of those kinds of things. There's every community is not for everyone, and I think that's okay. I'm not going to join like a weightlifting community because that's not really what I do with my time. But somebody else, that's going to be perfect for them. And the same is true for, your age, your interests, the time that you have free, all of these different things. And I think that's something else that we talked about in that first episode with Bishop Carter, is that things are probably, with the future of the church, going to move to be a little bit smaller. The focus and goal of a fresh expression is not to have 200 people like Susanna Wesley had. It's possible, but if that's your goal numbers, then I think you've already kind of lost your way. If your goal is people, reaching people, even if it's just one or two, then I think that the Spirit is in that when your heart is in that and will guide you in the right direction.
Yeah.
Some love for United Women in Faith. They know how to encourage others. We get lots of training through participation. Yes, I love that. We're never too old to envelop change and creativity to share love.
Amen. It's a good word.
Yes. People. And another from Ginny. Are you consciously aware not to display your faith through faith t-shirts, jewelry, etc., so others know you are not just another sinner saved by grace / love of God? Well, I know you can't take off your display of faith because it's tattooed on your arms.
Yeah.
You know, so what does that look like for you? Have you found, I know that I've found sometimes that if I, people are like, oh, what do you do? What did you study in school? And then they kind of change immediately a little bit of their attitude towards me. And you can tell that there's some people kind of close off a little bit.
Yeah.
I always joke that when that happens, I try to say a curse word in front of them to get them to realize like, oh, maybe she's not uptight or whatever it is, to get people to relax and realize I'm just a person like them. What about you? When you start a Fresh Expression, what are you upfront about?
Yeah, definitely in most cases, and this is a highly contextual answer, so not like a universal answer. But in most cases, probably not wearing t-shirts, like that, that's not really what this is about. It's actually being natural, relaxed in an environment with people just doing what you would normally do, wearing what you would normally wear. So like my priestly vestments are black tee and jeans because that's what most of the people that I'm in ministry with and the people that I'm hanging out with, building relationships with, that's, the kind of normal dress. But we do have an interesting thing happening with Recovery Church, which is a Fresh Expression for people in recovery, where some of the team took initiative and had some t-shirts made. And it says, changing lives through love, Recovery Church. So I think that's pretty cool too. And I think it can work in some situations. But yeah, if you don't want to have conversations about Jesus, don't tattoo his story on your arm. Because I cannot sit in an airplane by myself ever again. But I also think it's also the personality of the person, and how we relate to people and such. So yeah, there's a lot of variables in that question.
Yeah. I think Tracy's a good example of that. She purposefully wears t-shirts to spark conversations, and I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
We're ones that they sound maybe a little controversial, no matter who you are when you read it, and I love that. Just get people to say, "What does that mean?" And then all of a sudden, you're sparking talking.
Yeah, but I think probably to Jenny's original thing, like, would you all want to show up wearing, some so-and-so United Methodist Church shirts, at your Fresh Expression? Probably not, but definitely tattoos, t-shirts, like Tracy's a perfect example of that, can spark real conversations with people about faith.
Yeah. And like you said, just be who you are, if that's something you wear any day, whether you're doing a church event or not, it's just being who you are.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I think we should start wrapping up because we've already gone over how long we wanted to talk, but it's been a really cool conversation.
Yeah. Thank you everybody for who jumped in. I didn't think all this many people would jump in. This is awesome.
I know. This is really cool. Yay. Well, so we've got an episode today, and we are actually going to do twice a month. We'll have an episode. So our next one is going to be released on I believe December the 6th. So it'll be Tuesday. Every other Tuesday, you'll see a new episode from us.
Cool.
I'm very excited. New people, new ways.
Yeah, everybody, please take a minute today and just share the podcast on whatever platform you use, whether that's, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram.
Mhm.
Some of us are exploring the Fediverse. Should we talk about that at all? Like
The whataverse?
the Fediverse.
What is that?
That's like where you and I are kind of where the great Twitter migrations leaving over to
Oh
Mastodon.
yeah,
The
Mastodon. Mhm.
Yeah, from the metaverse to the Fediverse, the federated, blockchain multi.
Oh yes,
Yeah.
yeah. The
So
people's
post it
verse.
there too.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
Yeah,
I should.
post
We
it
should
on
make our own
Mastodon.
Mastodon. Yeah, put it out there. All your
Yeah,
social medias.
YouTube.
Yeah, we got our YouTube going. Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks for coming, everybody. Thank you so much. This was a good conversation. Thanks for all the questions. Have a good one.
Thanks,
Bye.
everyone.